The first step, recognize, right? So recognize is the first thing, right? Examine the self-talk closely. Like every time that you speak to yourself, you're engaging in your self-talk. And so those are opportunities. If the self-talk isn't one, if it's negative, it's going to keep you trapped in this current state. And so the first step is in overcoming this is identifying, where is this happening? Where am I having these limiting beliefs? Where are they surfacing? And what is the next best place to start? All right, welcome, game changers. This is, if you're listening to this on Thursday, the day that this interview dropped, September 5th, and you're coming in hot during our launch week. My book, Dynamic Drive, dropped on September 3rd into the market, and it is out in the world for you to live this life of Dynamic Drive. And you can imagine, right, over the last several years as this has been coming together tactically, of course, over decades before that. But, you know, the question that comes up all the time, right, is like, oh, cool, what's your book about? And, you know, whether it's friends or clients or, you know, when I'm speaking or whatever it might be. And what a wonderful question. And certainly, I got to tell you, right, like when you write a book that's 70,000 plus words and then you've got to answer that question in like 30 seconds, that is an interesting process. But here's what I'll share quickly, because what I want to do is break down something that has been a topic that has come up quite a bit with a lot of the interviews this week. If you're listening to this on the 5th, I'm in New York doing a lot of media for the book, but whether it's been podcasts in advance of this, the question that comes up a lot is something that I want to dig into today in service of ensuring that it's something that you can lift up, apply to your life right away, personally or professionally, to help you show up a little bit better. But to answer the first question, right, like what is Dynamic Drive? It is a way of life. It is a formula to go after what you want most in your life without compromising what actually matters most in your life. See, it's easy to lose sight of what matters to us in the pursuit of our goals. It's easy, and it's compounded by the fact that we live in a world that's totally obsessed with quick wins and, you know, superficial achievements. So this book is an invitation to pause, to redefine what drive means to you, and to park complacency, to park burnout to the side forever, truly forever. It's a formula. And as I said earlier, it's a way of life. So one of the most foundational components of Dynamic Drive is purpose. It's threaded through this entire way of life, because purpose unlocks drive, drive unlocks purpose. I break that down in detail in Dynamic Drive. But the first key, there are 7 keys to unpack and live into this formula of Dynamic Drive. And the first key is mindset. And so this is one that has been asked a lot. And so I felt like it was a perfect fit to sort of unpack it just a bit here for you. And so one of the things that I break down in the book is something I call TMR, which is total mindset reset. And so what I want to just ask you, right, like at some level, do you ever find yourself having limiting beliefs? Like, do you ever hear yourself saying, as we probably, and most of us have found ourselves in these moments, no question about it. I'm going to tell you a story about that for sure, where we're telling ourselves this, you know, I can't do this. If only I had fill in the blank, then I could fill in the blank. Or I'm not smart enough. I'm not good enough. I'm not, it doesn't even matter how hard I try. It is just not gonna work. Do you ever find yourself with these kinds of scripts just flipping in a circle in your head? And of course, we all have found ourselves with this funnel of candidly just self-talk that isn't serving us, that isn't taking us where we fundamentally want to go. And here's the thing, we have 70,000 thoughts a day, and most of them are automatic. So if we aren't super intentional about shifting our mindset, both in little moments and in big moments, then we are going to continue to automatically replay this pre-existing script. And so, I'll tell you, for me, when I stepped into the agent business and I found myself behind dugouts on the range at tour events, I found myself along the fences of minor league ballparks. And I also found myself in a ton of moments where people were yelling at my clients. Their managers were yelling at them for talking to me. Like, why are you talking to that chick, right? What are you doing? Come on, let's get back to BP. Batting practice. I mean, there was a ton of moments. And there was also moments where I would get in my car. I'd be driving back from visiting some guys in a minor league city or from a golf tournament or whatever it might be. And I'd be like, what am I doing? I mean, this is crazy. Like, no, I mean, these people think I'm somebody's girlfriend. They think there was so many moments and evidence where I was so different and mistaken and misinterpreted for what are you doing here? And that question came to me, it came to my clients. And so it was easy to find myself with this rinse and repeat script, right? Of like, what are you doing? You didn't pitch in the big leagues. You didn't play in the minor leagues. You didn't play golf, period. Certainly not on the PGA Tour or the LPGA Tour. You've, as it broadened, right? You've never been a on-air talent. I mean, there was so many moments where I would jump in my car, I'd go back to my apartment where I lived, and I'd think, what am I doing, man? Like this, I wonder if I'm just absolutely biting off a whole bunch more than I can tackle. And so there was lots of scripts that would come in. And then I remember distinctly one day leaving Georgia Tech, and I had gotten in my car, and it was just a moment when players weren't sure what I was doing there. There was a row of scouts along the fence in khakis and chewing tobacco and stopwatches and, clipboards, and I couldn't have looked more different. And then I got in and I thought, maybe this is kind of cool because I am different. And maybe this is a gift, right? Like, I'm not their girlfriend. I'm not their sister. I'm not their mom. They're around all these guys all the time because it was mostly guys at the time that I was recruiting in baseball, which was where I sort of started. So there was so many moments like that. And then I started to think, man, this actually could be really cool, right? And so I started to shift my script. And I'm not suggesting that it happened overnight, but I remember so distinctly getting in my car that day, driving back to my apartment and saying, maybe this is a gift. Maybe this is actually a positive. Maybe it's better. Maybe because I'm different, I can show up and serve these athletes in a way that's a little different than the guys that are recruiting them now. And so I shifted the script. And then I remember the very next day I go down to the ballpark, and I'm sort of standing on the fence, and I'm having these fluttering of good and bad things running through my head. And then there was two parents, a husband and a wife watching their son play. And it was always an interesting process, who was making the decision, right? Was it the athlete making it? Was it the parents? So I run up to sit to get to know the parents a little bit, to chat with them and connect with the parents of a player that I had been recruiting. And what was super cool in that moment was I found myself talking to the mom at length about everything that sort of she was experiencing as her son was stepping into what was a really unique window of time. And then there was other moments like that I started to pay more attention to. Guys, girlfriends, wives, with the players themselves, where they would call me and sort of, we would have a different kind of conversation than they could have. We would have a different kind of conversation than they were having with the guys on the team, with their dad, with their parents, even with their girlfriend. I mean, it was different, and it was showing up in a way that was turning into a positive. And of course, I believed that this was a positive thing. And so I share that story because I was flooded with limiting beliefs. And I so distinctly remember the moment where I decided I've got, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to go after it, I got to shift the story. I got to shift what I'm telling myself, or this is never going to work. And so I started to pay attention to the moments where I was telling myself, like, what are you doing? You're crazy. You didn't do this. You can't do this. All these things to, this is a gift. This is a positive. I can show up and connect with families in a little bit of a different way. And I thought, this is a blessing. This is cool. And then as time progressed, I began to gain clarity around what I talk about in Dynamic Drive, which is TMR, Total Mindset Reset. And so I want to walk you through this, because here's the deal. There are so many moments throughout our lives. There's been tons of moments since those moments where we've got that negative script and we've got to shift it. There's moments throughout your day that you've got to shift it. There's moments, personally, professionally, there's moments where you have to shift it. And it requires intentionality. And so here is a framework that you can lay over top immediately. I call it TMR. And so here's what I would challenge you to do. Think about an area in your life where you're feeling a little stuck, where potentially there's a bit of a performance problem, a gap. And then I want you to use this method. It's 3 steps. The first step, recognize, right? So recognize is the first thing, right? Examine the self-talk closely. Like, every time that you speak to yourself, you're engaging in your self-talk. And so those are opportunities. If the self-talk isn't one, if it's negative, it's going to keep you trapped in this current state. And so the first step is in overcoming this, is identifying, where is this happening? Where am I having these limiting beliefs? Where are they surfacing? And what is the next best place to start relative to examining these moments of negative self-talk? So we have to first recognize it. We have to recognize when it's happening, where it's happening, how it's happening. And so if I was to look back at my personal situation, it was moments when I was physically in those environments where I was feeling so different, where I was being looked at different, those were the moments where it was showing up. So I had to recognize that that's where it was happening. And so fundamentally, that's number one. Number two, we got to replace it, right? We've got to replace it we've got to replace the negative self-talk with the way that someone with a limitless mindset would talk to themselves, right? So what would a great coach say to you in that moment? What would an encouraging friend say to you, an encouraging parent, an encouraging colleague? What would they say to you in that moment? And how can we grab that and replace that negative script with the kind of self-talk that's more positive, that's going to allow us to show up the way we want to? So we have to take that negative script and we've got to replace it. And then number 3, we have to reinforce the new script. In other words, the only way that we can help make it stick is we've got to strengthen the positive script by potentially, right? Maybe it's one-word reminders. Maybe it's something that is visible, truly, that you see throughout your day. Maybe it's the screensaver on your phone. Maybe you take the new script that you need and you put it in places throughout your house, throughout areas in your life where you are consistently present, and you make it really visible. Maybe it's your bathroom mirror. Like I said, maybe it's your phone. But we need this. Maybe it's literally taking a reminder on your phone, and every hour you remind yourself through that self-talk that comes through as a reminder to you. Maybe it's that. But we have to develop the new script and keep it visible and present, because those reps are exactly what's going to help us replace that negative self. And so I want to give you a couple examples that I actually frame up in the book. So here's an example that again, you can consider. So let's say you have a goal to get back in shape. And so the first step would be to recognize that between work and family demands, I don't have time to work out. To recognize that that is in fact the loop story that you're telling yourself. And then we have to replace that story. So we would say, working out and prioritizing my health, it's going to allow me to show up at my best, both at work and at home. And then one example, again, is to reinforce it. Find a picture of you when you were physically just felt like your best and post it in your bathroom mirror. Post it, make it the screensaver on your phone, make it visible to you to remind you of where you were, that it is in fact possible. Or maybe, here's another one. I'll do one more. Let's say the goal is to eat at home more often than eating out. So maybe the script is, we want to recognize is, I hate cooking. I'm horrible at it. I don't have time. It is just easier to order in. And then we want to recognize that. We want to replace it with eating at home saves money. It's healthier. And it gives our family a ritual that we can look forward to be together, potentially. Could be this area. It's worth a little bit of extra effort. And then reinforce the news story with, maybe get a new weekly meal planner calendar and put it on your fridge so that you have a visible reminder of your plan and you can even prepare accordingly. I actually really connect with that particular example because I lived that. That is actually, I hate cooking. I'm horrible at it. But when my daughters were young, of course, what would happen constantly is they would look at my husband and I, before they left for school or when they would get home from school. Hey, Mom and Dad, what's for dinner? And yes, I did. I trained them to ensure they included their father in that question, for the record. And I turned that into a different script, that this could be an opportunity for my girls to learn, to grow, to develop maybe some skills relative to cooking and to be maybe even a little family kind of project, etc. And so then we started to plan meals and then unpack that to literally years later, they now truly actually, when they're home for the summer from college, they cook every meal. It's epic. It's amazing. And they're great cooks. So I share that because that was a negative story I was telling myself all the time. I hate cooking. I'm horrible at it. I don't have time. I'd rather just order in. And then I had to replace it with, gosh, maybe this is an opportunity for us to create more connection together as a family. Maybe this is an important skill that, candidly, if I had sons, I would want men, women, that my girls can unpack, learn, and know how to do, because when they go to college, they're not going to be able to afford to eat out. They need to eat in and they need to know how to cook. And so then I replaced it, and then I reinforced it with truly a little calendar that we put on our fridge. And so there it is, TMR, mindset. Shifting our mindset helps us have what I also break down in more detail in Dynamic Drive, which is this next play mentality, right? When we shift our script, when we recognize it, replace it, and reinforce it, total mindset reset. It is a game changer for any of you who find yourself stuck in some areas. You want to make a shift. We have to be intentional about taking all of these 70,000 thoughts, replacing them with something that's going to take us where we want to go. As I said, this is one part of one key of Dynamic Drive. Dynamic Drive is, as I said, it is a way of life. It's a formula to go after what you want most without compromising what actually matters most. So if you haven't picked up a book, I got to tell you, go to Amazon. You can go to Get Dynamic Drive, anywhere books are sold. It is there. I can promise you, not only will it change the way you show up, the way you live your life, it's contagious. It's contagious if you're a leader to the people you lead. It's contagious to the people that you love and live with. It is contagious. And so, yes, get one for yourself. Buy into this way of life. Believe in it deeply. Embark in that journey. Or grab a couple for people that you work with, people that you live with, in service of having the opportunity to support each other as you live into this way of life. And here's what I can promise you relative to TMR, relative to Total Mindset Reset, relative to the one of 7 keys, just simply this one, is that you will find yourself in life seeing an obstacle, seeing a challenge, seeing a moment of adversity, and you know what's going to happen? It will become an opportunity. It will become an opportunity because you will shift your mindset around the circumstance in service of allowing you to show up and in the world, in those moments, in the way that's taking you where you want to go. TMR, Total Mindset Reset. Listen, Game Changers, thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, stay bold, be dynamic, and unlock your dynamic drive.